Welcome to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share. All ideas, thoughts, and statements are those of the guest and the host of Echo Oscar Delta, and not of Navy EOD or Navy as a whole.
Well, I guess we'll get started then. Awesome. Appreciate you guys coming on. We got strength coaches from Strike and Kyle and John. I think probably the easiest, since I know only a small bit about your history, is if you guys would just kind of introduce yourselves, your background, and how you found like the Strike program and started working for it.
All right. I'll let John go ahead and lead us off.
Yeah, so I've been with the Strike program for about 7 months now. Before that, I was with University of Georgia as a student assistant working with Olympic sports. Prior to that, I was at Penn State University also working with Olympic sports. That's where I earned my undergrad. And then I spent a couple summers before that working with Army football. I grew up at Army West Point. My dad worked there. I found the Strike program because one of Kyle's childhood's best friends is the Olympic sports director at UVA. He was in town at Georgia for the NCAA Women's Swim Championships. I was able to meet him, and then a week later, Kyle texted him asking if anyone was interested in the Strike program job, and I said I was, and just went from there.
Awesome.
Yep.
Nice.
And I've been at Strike for a little over 4 years now. Prior to this, I was with the Miami Marlins organization. Prior to that, I was with the Florida Panthers for a few years. And a little bit before that, I was at a place called IMG Academy. So my career path is a little bit longer just because I'm way older than John and the old man of the group. But yeah, so I've done this for about 14 years. My undergrad was at a small school called Palm Beach Atlantic University, and then I was a GA at a school called Nova Southeastern, so both of those in South Florida.
Okay.
So that's my primary background. Both of ours are definitely in the sports world.
Nice.
So
Yeah. I forgot to mention, I'm earning my master's degree from University of Georgia in 6 days.
That's awesome.
He's
I'm
got
sure
his
a
grad
lot.
photos for us. So
Yeah.
we're excited.
They're all over.
Nice, dude. That's awesome. How's that process?
It's been good.
Yeah.
I was able to take this job and finish my degree online, which I was very thankful for.
That's cool.
But it's been great.
Yeah, he was technically interning. Yeah.
Yeah.
With us. It was
It is eternal fall.
Nice. For you guys personally, what's your sports history, or what do you call it? Like the either the type of sports or fitness that you guys were into and or are into?
So mine is very much in the performance setting as far as it relates to, athletic development. So hitting on all elements of whether it be power, strength, work capacity, and endurance. I would say what helped me kind of connect with these guys was definitely the hockey background. And so that was a lot more of their style of training. It's definitely morphed. I've had to adapt it since I got up here, but coming from, if it was just football and track, or if it was, which I had it, or if it was just baseball, I think it would have been a very steep connection curve and relationship development curve as it relates to training philosophy if it wasn't for hockey.
Yeah.
And so that's why I tell these guys a lot, especially newer guys that are kind of learning, whether it be myself or John, and our training styles, is that's what it closely correlates to as far as how these guys train.
Okay.
I was in high school. I played soccer, and I was a very competitive rower as well. I didn't do any sports in college. I just classic high schooler goes to college. They lift a bunch of heavy weights, and then you learn in about a year that that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get hurt. I got hurt a lot, so that's when I made that transition to, I don't need to lift heavy every day. I can do other things as well as work on my work capacity, my endurance, just for my overall health. And noticed I started feeling a lot better. So I can take that story and then tell it to the guys like, hey, this is what I went through. You've probably gone through something similar, so we can see like what we're doing is working and is really helping you in the long run.
Yeah.
And I didn't really train that much, or like I should have in high school, so I got cut in college for baseball. I thought no fault to anybody but my own.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of really appealed me to this field, really and truly. Like when I got cut, I was very butthurt, but I wanted to stay around the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was at Palm Beach Atlantic, the Marlins and Cardinals were actually trained only about 10 or 15 minutes from our school where their spring training sites are. And so I was able to go up there and help out out during spring training and shadow and do all that. So that's what really appealed me to this field, was like, oh, this is something that's very interesting, something that, well, probably 2 years ago I really should have done and focused on.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way when I wasn't doing college sports. I still wanted to do some sort of career around athletics or with athletic people, so that's what led me to strength conditioning.
Nice. You mentioned the injury side. I think that's like a perfect segue into this. So I know, like, in my career, right, that EOD career, started out and we didn't have any structured anything, right? It was just kind of like be hard and do hard things, and then surprise, injuries come from that. What kind of stuff, since you've been doing the strike program, have you seen? I guess a twofold question. What kind of training, maybe not philosophy, but like mentality, have you seen the EOD guys have? Whether it's good or bad, does there seem to be like a common thing? Okay, threefold question. And then does, well, we'll start there, and then I'll try to remember what the third one was.
All right. Well, the first, and I'll lead us off, since I've been, observing you guys for a good amount of time, is a lot of the guys go two ways when they come in, as far as a lifting or training philosophy. A lot of guys are the CrossFit background, where it's higher intensity, higher volume, and go hard all the time. And then the other ones still go hard all the time, but it's more of the powerlifting background. So squat, bench, and deadlift, and chasing 1 rep maxes. If I had like a preference, it would honestly be a little bit more of the CrossFit style. And that's just because we're very much believers in the Olympic movements or Olympic movement variations, as well as the higher intensity type training. It's just us going in and kind of doing the re-education piece of, okay, we can still do this stuff. It will still be fun. You'll still, feel like somewhat smoked. We're just not going to smoke you every day, because that's just simply not sustainable. Right. And so those two philosophies, have been what I've observed. And you have every now and then you'll have your like hardcore, like endurance type athlete, and that's fine too. But from a philosophical standpoint, it's definitely CrossFit background or powerlifting background. For the majority. And then injury wise, we've seen a lot of shoulder, a lot of hip and low back, and some ankle. And so from the older population, not so much from training, but just throughout your career, you're going to know this, where you see just a lot of lower back. And so that's from a multitude of things. From the younger population, you'll still see lower back and you'll see shoulders, but it's going to be at an earlier stage because of what they're doing training in the weight room already on themselves. And so that's something that, we've kind of centralized our focus on is, okay, we still need to connect and we still have to develop programs and create a relationship with you guys. And this is how we're going to do it, is just from, hey, this is our lifting philosophy. This is our backgrounds, but we're still going to do the stuff that you enjoy. But here's how we're going to tailor it to where you're not going to end up thrashed and every 3 months be a revolving door back into the rehab setting.
Yeah, so just going off of that, he covered most things, but we just have a big emphasis on recovery is okay, or taking a day to just recover is okay. You don't need to go all out every single day. That's just going to lead to excess fatigue, and that eventually leads to those injuries. So the best that we can do to mitigate those injuries are going to happen. We can't prevent every single injury. We wish we could, but if we just have them make sure they're taking some sort of recovery or even a lower intensity day to make sure that they're letting their body get the rest it needs and helping mitigate those injuries, then we're doing a good job.
Yeah. And I think going hard all the time, I think that, when people hear, especially our dudes, like when they hear like, oh, recovery day or day off, it's not a term of endearment.
Right. Yeah.
And so when we can, that's huge for our rehab staff. So from PTs and athletic trainers, when they do their thing and do the educational piece, where they come and see them, and we can all three of us have that conversation about, okay, we are not going to, it's not going to turn you soft, and it's not like a complete day off. You're still doing stuff. It's just not getting thrashed, or you can still even do stuff in the weight room, but it's just not going to destroy you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know it's it's I don't know. I guess it's hard to like switch that mentality because like the job is so like you have to be 100%. 100% is like the minimum you can give, right? And so like a lot of us transition that into the weight room. Is there a difference between on the collegiate and the professional side at like professional athletes' approach to the fitness side as opposed to like military athletes? Because it's different, but from the two sides, is there a difference?
You lead off this one. I've been talking too much.
Yeah, 100%. I would say it largely depends on the sport. So if I'm just using like swimming and dive as an example, they train 3 times a day on days that they have lifts. So they'll have a swim in the morning, a lift, and then a swim in the afternoon. So they're just shot. They're probably not going to give more than 50% in the weight room. They're just there to go through the motions. But then if you go and look at a sport like football, where they love the weight room, that's what they want to do. And depending on what time of year it is, they're practicing 1 time a day. They're probably going to give a lot more effort than those swimmers and divers just because they're so beat. But then it also depends on the individual. There's a lot of individuals that really love the weight room, really want to go as hard as they can in the weight room, and there's people that are just there because they have to be.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, like with the military setting, they don't have to be in the weight room doing our programs. They have that choice. The college athletes don't have that choice. Professional athletes will have more of a choice. Kyle's got a little more experience with that than I do, so I'll let him talk on pro athletes.
Yeah, so just like John was saying, every sport definitely has their culture. And coming from let's say hockey, for instance, their culture is similar to the EOD, where it's 100% of the time. And within that, like, we had guys that they could play, I don't know how familiar you are with the game, but play 20 minutes plus per night, which is a crazy amount of ice time. But they still had to get something done in the weight room, or they would just feel like they're lazy piece of crap.
Yeah.
And so for the most part, sport of hockey it's very similar to the EOD in that, if it's not going as crazy hard as these guys do, they're still busting out, a circuit or doing something conditioning wise in the weight room, even after the games. And then shift that over completely 180 degrees to something like pro baseball right now. And a lot of times you have a lot of mixed cultures in there. So you got a lot of the American players and you have a lot of the Latin players. And a lot of the American players have a lot more just because of resources, right? They just have a lot more of lifting backgrounds. And whether it be high school or collegiate. And then you have the Latin players who are very, very young and, they've gotten to the States where they're 16 to 18 years old and they've never even seen a weight room. Really? And so you get a lot of diversity in that weight room as far as their training level. And so there's a lot of times where you have somebody who's been lifting and they're very similar in age, but somebody's been lifting in around a weight room for 4 to 6 years. And another guy who, this is his second time ever seeing a dumbbell. Yeah. And so it's a very diverse culture. So with that and with pro sports, you have to make it a lot more of more progressive or regressive depending on the athlete. And so that's something that, we don't really see a whole lot, because when we got guys that are in, it's a lot more like the hockey. A lot of the guys have been training for years and years. It's just going back to what we talked about earlier, just what philosophy or what method did they do and what method that they feel is beneficial to their career.
Yeah. Have you seen, talking about like a potential resistance, right? And depending on the athlete, and like an endurance athlete might have resistance to the weight room, right? And getting stronger, right? I know like right now it's funny. It's not funny. People make fun of me, I should say. But I got tiny legs because like I was an endurance athlete for the majority of my life, right? And so like I convinced myself that the only thing I needed to do for legs was run. And now that I'm like trying to lift again, I shouldn't have done that. It's very disproportionate and makes me sad. But have you guys seen in the EOD realm like, does it seem like generally people want to come in and do the fitness thing, or is there like a resistance to, from what you've seen, to fitness? Or, and this is what I'm kind of thinking is maybe the actual thing, is a resistance to someone telling them what they should do.
Part B. No, there's no resistance with fitness with these guys.
Yeah.
And so early on, in the, let's say when I got here in like late 2020 to 2021, it was very much greeted with a high level of skepticism, with our facility. And until we earn your guys' trust, just like anything, like I wouldn't listen to me. And it was very much like, who are these guys? Like, I know how to work out. I've trained for, whether it be 6, 8, 10 plus years on my own. I've done just fine. Why should I need you? And so until you make that connection of meeting the guys where they are, so take an endurance type athlete, and you come in for an injury, you're greeted with our, PT staff and athletic training staff, and they would, walk you over to us, and we would have that discussion. And that discussion does not include us trying to, make you, if you're an endurance guy, I'm not going to greet you with, here's my philosophy on Olympic lifts and athletic performance. Yeah. It's going to be, here's how we're going to do stuff with you that's going to benefit you as a runner and as an operator. Right. And then the same is true with, somebody who's been heavily involved in, let's say, like CrossFit. And again, he's coming into the facility, whether it be for an injury or whether it be just to train, but it's meeting them where they are. It's like, look, we're not anti any of what you're doing. It's just, here's something that, will help you in the short and long term. Yeah. And here's our main objectives, and here's our background of, okay, this is what we've done. And then once we got that going, and, that kind of spread like wildfire, right? Where the trust was there, we got in with some OGs and some cool dudes that are like, hey, these guys aren't all clowns. Yeah. And so they know what they're talking about. And I mean, I don't know for John, but at least I feel like I'm pretty cool. But it's
rule number one.
But when they want to come into the facility, and so we were able to make connections with guys that are new coming in. It's part of that process. Hey, go check in with Strike, and even if it's not doing something on a program wise, just have a conversation with us. And so that really, really grew from, where we were, just for an example of in 2021, I think we averaged across all of our workouts, our training sessions per month was around, 500 to 600, which is cool. But now it is over 1,700 per month. And so that's been, a great attribute. And we're not just taking credit. That's a tribute to all the guys. We get excellent support from leadership. Our entire system, from PT to athletic trainers, to psych health staff, is just phenomenal. So it's made our job very easy when it's truly that one-stop shop for all things performance and wellness. Yeah. Sorry, John.
No, I mean, I think the biggest thing is we're just telling guys, like, we're here to help you, and it's your program. You tell us what you want to see in it, and we'll help make that program for you to be something that you enjoy doing, as well as it's providing the benefit that we want to see through it. So we're not going to make you some cookie cutter program that you're going to hate. It's going to be something that has stuff that you like. You might have a one or two thing that you don't like, but it's good for you. And overall, it's just going to be something that they enjoy doing, and that'll help keep them on it and push that to their other guys. Like, hey, this is a great program. They made this for me. They made these changes based on what I wanted or injury that I've had in the past. Yeah. Go get on one of their programs. It'll help you out a lot.
I was talking to a dude, man, it was probably only 2 weeks ago or so. And he just recently started working out with you guys because he was lazy. If you're listening to this, you know who you are. But he was like, I've been doing it for, a couple months or whatever, like the program. He's like, and I'm just like, I feel like stagnant or whatever. I was like, well, go talk to him. Like, tell them that right. These things that you're doing now, you feel like you want to switch into a different style. Like, all you have to do is open your mouth and talk. They like, every time I've talked to them about it, they don't care what you want to do. I think there's this perception that you built them a program. And so like, the only thing that he can do is that. Like, no. Like, if even if you don't like one of the lifts, you can be like, hey, do you have an alternative to this?
100%.
Like, I've never heard you guys be like yelling at some dude like, I can't believe you're not doing the program I built exactly the way I prescribed it. You have to like it. Like, no, it's not like that at all. Like, and he was like, oh, okay. Like, how? It's just silly. But yeah, oh man, what was I thinking? Talking about the, that's what I was going to say. So resistance at first, what's funny is, I saw that resistance like coming before the program even started, because there was talk from the military side, which always does everything perfect, about how the purpose of strike is that they were going to build MCM teams, programs that best aligned with lots of diving and that, like certain things like that, right? There was very little talk about building programs that, yes, helped you do your job, but also were what you wanted to do, right? And so I was like, I feel like we're talking a little too much on this because there's going to be resistance at first, right? And then obviously, like you said, that the goal, and actually, I guess a good question to be, and you kind of already said it, but like, is there like a mission statement or like an underlying, like, this is what our goal is for at least the strength side?
Our goal, and we can speak for a totality of strike, is simply operator longevity, right? And both the physical, mental, and emotional capacities. And so when people hear the term longevity, I feel like it's a lot more greeted with you're thinking of older people, and that's not it at all, right? We want to see guys with their careers operationally be longer, and extend those out before you go and sit behind a desk. If you are currently behind the desk, we still want to improve your lifestyle, right? And so, like those three elements that I just mentioned. And so whether it be a physical, mental, or an emotional type of system element that we're improving. I mean, we can't do obviously the emotional stuff, but other people can.
Yeah.
But we can take care of the physical stuff. And so it's quite simple for operator longevity, and that's our entire purpose. We can go into the mission statement from the Commodore or the mission statement of Strike itself, but it's simply that.
Yeah.
And so that is our main purpose. From a strength side, it's going to be just like anybody in the sporting world. It's going to be to reduce the amount of injuries. I mean, if we were to tell you we're going to absolutely, like John said, reduce injuries of high risk training, absolutely not. We'd be idiots, and you shouldn't listen to us at all. But when injuries do happen, we're part of that integrative process with the rehab team, to where we're going to work with you for what you can do. They're going to work with you around your injury. And then that system is going to progress to where you slowly become back into the weight room. And then we're going to be there to optimize performance when you're healthy. And so those are our three main objectives from the strength and conditioning side. And I feel like that's a piece that guys have understood, and that's gotten so much better, as far as the guys' understanding is going to be getting back and being part of that integrated process when they return to active duty. Whereas I feel like previously, and you correct me if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, is when you're shut down, you're shut down. And so if I have an ankle, I have a shoulder, then, if shut down and I see a PT and it takes a very long time to get a second appointment, where with us, you're in there, your schedule that you're going to come and see the athletic training staff every, Tuesday and Thursday, and they're going to walk you over with us, or we're going to have that conversation with you about what you can do and how this is going to allow you to progress in a faster way. Yeah. And so that's been a big boost, as far as I think building the trust with the guys as well, is seeing that, okay, it's not just for, when I'm ready to go, it's also an integrative part of the rehab process. Yeah. Sorry, John.
You got most of it.
Sorry. John, you're talking on the next one. Yeah.
I just say with like the rehab process, like we're here to help you get back as quickly as you can, kind of like in the sports world. We're not going to like rush you, but we want to make sure that you're getting back to full operational status as fast as you can, and most effectively as you can. Also going along with that, like we'll talk with rehab staff as often as we can about guys. Like, oh, hey, look, they're looking really good. Can we progress them? And then they'll let us know. So we're going to make sure the guy's not staying stagnant with his injury. We're going to make sure that they're progressing well and effectively so they can get back to their operational status.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed from before the strike program, so like most of my career, to after with you guys having that integral role and it not just being PTs or just being psych or just being strength, right? It is that like combination is injuries that we'd have before. If we went and saw PT, whatever, you'd see it long enough to figure out like how jacked up is it, and then depending on what they said, you just stop seeing them and pretend everything's fine. And now, weird, I have leftover things from doing that multiple times. But just like you said, now where you go in and you can get that rehab, and I feel like PT outside of the sports world has too much of like stop everything, heal, and then go back to it. Whereas it's like with the strike program as a whole, it's address the injury. And then, like you said, what can you do? So instead of like a laundry list of what can't you do, which there might be, it's more focused on here's what you can do while you're getting healed up. And then as that healing goes, adding more and more things to those lists is, I think that I know for definitely for me, and then for quite a few people that I've talked to, that's one of the things that like buys that credibility for the program as a whole, is not trying to prevent people from doing things, but instead like what can you do with the limitation that you have. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's been a good like a refreshing thing for, I know myself, a lot of people that are as young as pretend as old as me, and then even the newer guys who come in and like you join a program like EOD expecting to have this kind of backing, and then it's actually there. Like that's awesome. Let's see. We kind of already talked about like your approach. Well, actually, we haven't. Is there a difference in your approach to training the like professional athlete or collegiate athlete where they're either for a sport, they're doing things specific for that sport, or have to be in a specific shape for that sport, or then like if your sport is like running or Olympic lifting, whatever, obviously then there's a line for that. Is your approach towards training them different than approach towards?
Go ahead. I'll stop talking.
I would say the biggest thing with that, with professional and college athletes, is they have seasons. So they have their preseason, in season, off season. With the EOD guys, they don't have an off season. They always need to be ready to go. So we're not making a lot of those changes like we would with the sports athletes, where they're training the off season, they're going to be doing something completely different than if they're training the in season. We have to make sure that the operators are always ready to go. They don't get a off season per se. And then we don't have the team aspect as much as, especially in college athletes, where the whole team will come in and lift, and they have they're yelling at each other, motivating each other. We don't have that in our weight room because it just isn't the place for it.
Yeah. And
it's usually like one guy from the team at a time coming in, or a couple guys coming to train together, but they're not in there, yelling and screaming at each other. They're just in there in the morning getting their workout done, and then they're going to work.
Yeah.
And I would say on top of that is the mentality of our guys versus the pro sport. Like in pro sports, like we can't do certain things for the risk reward factor. And I'm not saying that we're like going to program. It's like, oh, well, good luck. See you later. You know, and so what if you get injured? But no, it's a lot more of a conservative approach with whether it be especially the pro side, or college side, but in a pro side, you do not want to be the dude, the strength coach that injures the guy in the weight room, because you're gone. And so you can't do certain things. You're gonna simply avoid certain things in the weight room, because you're not going to be the reason, you know, this outfielder can't play today. And so, you know, you're going to find yourself on a short leash that way. And with these guys, if they don't like the program, it's a voluntary based program. If they don't like it, then it's like, all right, well, see you later. I'm just going to go and do my, you know, my WOD over at Pierside or wherever the case may be. And, you know, if I get hurt, I get hurt, or if I keep doing it and getting hurt, whatever. But with us, our philosophy, we can increase the intensity or complexity of the lifts without a GM or a head coach coming in and you know, looking over it or seeing what's going on in the weight room. And the way it was first described me, especially when I was just getting into, because this world was very new to me when I was coming in. And so they have phenomenal staff on the West Coast as well. But the way Jack McCormick out in San Diego explained it to me, he goes, you know, these guys are going to drive the car 100 miles an hour. It's simply up to us to put up the guardrails. And so that really, you know, I think he said that to me in like 2021, and that's always resonated with me. And so that's going to be the kind of the training philosophy, to where, you know, you can do some things that you wouldn't in the sports world. But these guys are experienced lifters, and they're going to want to do that stuff. And if they don't, then they're still going to be doing something, you know, pretty nuts. And it's just going to be without us and without those guardrails in place.
No, that's interesting. You brought that up. I remember going through EOD school. And so, like I said, I was a runner, you know, ran in high school, ran at junior college, and then decided to come in the Navy instead of taking, had a couple scholarships to like San Jose State, San Francisco State, a couple places. And instead of doing the smart thing, I came in the Navy. But it was funny all through that time, right? Like, I think not only did I not want to take extra risk, because, you know, especially when I was in junior college, trying to like run well enough to get colleges to notice and then try to go. Not only did I not want to do anything crazy, I also didn't want, like, if something worked, that's all that I did. Because I was like, oh, I know for me, back then I did just a lot of high volume training, and I knew having all of those, you know, quote unquote junk miles under me, and doing the track workouts that I did, and like those, I knew that setup, high mileage, worked, right? There was risk to it, but I knew it worked. Low mileage, my coach, you know, as I grew up, like, didn't do that with him. He didn't believe in that. That was an unknown. I wasn't about to like risk potential scholarship on an unknown. But in EOD school, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can actually try running 40 miles a week instead of 120 and like see if it works. Right. And like through trial and error, you could figure that out. Whereas when I'm like trying to get to a collegiate program that I want to go to, you can't play around. Right. Like, you have to do what you know works. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I hadn't, you know, personally, I guess I had realized that, but I hadn't thought about that from like the trainer perspective, from the coach perspective. Like, yeah, you really don't want to be that dude that's like, hey, we've never done this lift before. Let's try this. I know you got a huge game tomorrow, but let's play.
Yeah, exactly.
I can assume like that's what the off season is for, which, yeah, we don't have an off season, but I guess in a way we kind of have an off season ish, in that like our workup is our quote unquote off season, even though we're not really off. But once you go on deployment, that's when it's like, you really don't want to get injured on deployment. You got a little bit of leeway prior to. something else that I was thinking about as we were talking is, you know, you'd mentioned some guys, not, I don't think a lot, but we have a handful of guys that really like the powerlifting, the 1 rep max thing. And I feel like enough studies have shown that doing that type of programming is generally where like the bigger injuries and the more risk to it comes in when you're trying to like recruit everything for 1 rep, tend to have the injuries. And while you're willing to work with the dudes that like to do that, if somebody doesn't have an idea in mind of that's what they want to do, but they've been doing that because their buddy does that.
Right.
Trying to steer them a little more towards the CrossFit style, even though it's not really a CrossFit.
Right. Or performance, athletic performance, whatever.
Yeah. Which totally lines up with the like longevity, right? Like even the guys that I know that do the 1 rep max stuff, a lot of them as they have become my age, they reduce down the lifts that they do on that and start like working a totally different style of program because of that injury risk. Have you guys noticed that or kind of seen that in?
Yeah, with the guys that, you know, are married to that philosophy of chasing 1 rep maxes, I think that's been critical as far as the educational piece that our induct process provides, and that, you know, we're able to discuss training goals, and I think the powerlifting style, we're not, you know, directly opposed to it, but a lot of times when guys get so, I guess, hyper, I don't know, like, I don't even know. Sorry, cut this part out. but
Like hyperfixated.
Yeah, fixated.
Yeah.
There's the word. Sorry, and word guy. And when they get so obsessed with that tying into performance, then they just chase those and they throw every other training modality out the window.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, okay, well, you know, I haven't run in 3 weeks, but hey, my squat's gone up 15 pounds, or you know, I haven't done anything of other than strength-based lifts or these big 3 lifts for the past 6 months. But you know, every time I got to go run now, or they go to command PT or go play with my kid, and I end up in our physical therapist's office. Right? And so when they get so hyper fixated, and that sort of philosophy, it tends to do that, right? And so I think when we have the conversation, I think when their minds don't shift, when we say, hey, we're not about chasing 1 rep maxes or 3 rep maxes, they immediately shift to, oh, well, they want to take away squat, bench, and deadlift. No, heck no, dude. That's not at all what we want. And we're still going to lift heavy, but that's just not going to be our centralized focus. Yeah. And so, you know, we've struggled with that with some people, but I want to say a lot that we've kind of won over. It's like, dude, we're not trying to take that away. Yeah. And so we just want to make it to where, you know, that's not going to be your only key performance indicator of being an efficient operator or having any sort of career longevity. Yeah. And when guys, you know, do chase, you know, simply, you know, chase that 1RM, and yes, you know, we've seen a lot more injuries than not when guys go in, but we just don't want them to lose that modality. And we talk, or lose the focuses on the other modalities. And we talk about it all the time. And whether it be an indoc and places that we've been, it's like, yeah, like even in the college setting, a lot of times, you know, big boy football, like we're the world that, you know, we've been in before, where it's, guys, like even the 1RM boards are going away, you know, where it was like in the 90s throughout, you know, just a decade ago, where, you know, you're, you know, doing things like ringing the bell and writing your name on the board, and that, I mean, cool and good. But I tell dudes all the time, like when I was at LSU, like, guys, like the guys that have the 1RM records, you've never even heard of.
Yeah.
Right? Like, haven't played a snap in the league. And crap, they barely played at LSU. And so it's like, where do you see that benefiting you? And so some of them, they'll come around to it, and that light bulb kind of goes off.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we want to do is like, okay, dude, we're not trying to take it away. We're just not going to glorify it.
Yeah.
sorry, John. Go ahead.
I was to add a quick thing because I think Kyle hit the nail on the head with that. But we've had guys that are big into the strength and powerlifting. We've just sprinkled in some of that work capacity, high intensity circuit stuff, and like, yo, dude, that was great. Can I have more of that?
Yeah.
So it's just like introducing them to that, and then them realizing like, yo, this is another great part of training that's going to help me become a better overall operator.
Yeah.
I want to do more of that as well as continue to do that heavy strength stuff.
Yeah. I can't remember the dude's name, but one of the like super high up powerlifting dudes, and he was talking about how doing 1 rep max stuff, like the only reason why you should do that is because you're competing for powerlifting, where that is the thing you do. Like you literally have to lift the most amount of weight for 1 rep. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, like you can reduce your risk to injury even just by doing 3 rep max, like significantly. And I mean, I don't do any of those anymore, but don't watch me in the gym. It's very pathetic, but
put you in a corner.
Yeah. But back when I did, like, 'cause I used to try and, do bench or deadlift I never tried to do squat, again, skinny, tiny legs, but deadlift, I could do a decent amount for the size, and yeah, you just feel weird things, but, dropping even 100 pounds from, going from 405 to 315, whatever. And like, man, it felt so much better. You get a workout in, feel so much better. And then that work capacity thing, like it's cool to be able to put up a big number, but it's cool to be able to know that you can put up a little bit smaller number multiple times.
Right. Or you come back fresher.
Yeah.
It's like, cool. I got 5+ on a deadlift, and I'm shot for the next 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what's cooler to me, and I think John would echo this, is you're able to do something at a high intensity level on Monday and come back on Tuesday ready to go and do something very similar, or something in another modality, but still high intense.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I think the important thing to put out there for those listening in EOD and like looking at the strike program, and if they haven't gone to it yet, is like, if you are a competitive power lifter on your weekend, you guys aren't opposed to like building a program that can help support that too. Right. Like, but if you're not, like,
even better.
Yeah. Right. No,
if that is your focus, right?
Yeah.
If that is your focus, yes, we can help you with that, with that sort of, I guess, training philosophy. Yeah, we can help you. Now we're gonna, want to have that discussion. It's like, okay, are you competing, right? And same thing with, guys going for functional fitness or CrossFit competition. It's like, okay, if you're competing for your sport, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. But if you're just doing it for, this is your training, then that's a completely different thing.
Right. Yeah. One question that I'm pretty sure I know the answer to is, we talked about resistance to different types of, training from guys, and generally people are pretty open to it. How much resistance percentage wise is there to just running in general from the community?
Honestly, less than you think.
Really?
I'd say most of the operators are very willing to run. There's maybe only a handful that aren't a big fan of it, but will still do it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Yeah, less than you would think. Yeah. I think they're more vocal dudes, just like vegans. Like, there's not that many in the world, but the ones that are, you really hear them.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, because I asked that because I guess it makes sense. You said there's people don't want to do it, but they're willing. Like, that may not be their choice, but if it's on the program, they know they need to. But man, just in the office, every time I hear someone pull up their phone and look on the app and be like, God dang it, I have to run today? Like, this sucks. Maybe I can, and then just 15 minutes of like excuses on how they could potentially not have to work out today. And then eventually just like huff and puff over to strike.
See the vegan coming. But yeah, I think that's a cool addition that our app base has brought on, is that we're allowed now, or like, not we're always allowed, but it's easier to navigate our app service with options for that cardio options. But it's the guys that, look, you're gonna have to run if you like it or not, and you know that you have some runs coming up, so you might want to increase that frequency that you're doing it. But if something's far away, if you're, you know, an older guy or coming off an injury, or, you know, it's bugging you, or it's, you know, like it is today and illegally cold outside, then here's another modality where we can still stress, you know, an aerobic capacity without, you know, pounding the pavement.
I know. I feel like everybody was, or most people in EOD school was a lot more like willing to run, even the guys that didn't like it. But then, when you look at what we have to do for work, like running and building that cardio, you actually using your legs. You're not necessarily going to run a 5K infill, but you're going to ruck the 5K infill. So like having that cardio and getting your legs used to moving, you got to do it at some point.
Right. Tissue tolerance, bro.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the, like, looking at tissue tolerance, if you don't run and then you have to go run a certain distance, you're probably going to get hurt, or it's not going to go very well. So just making sure that you're having that minimum effective dose to be able to go out and run whenever you're asked and not get hurt and be able to do it fairly well is important for us.
And it's very task specific, right? So it's, if you go out and swim, or if you row, or do any other cardio stuff, that is not going to have a direct translation to running, right? And I always, you know, I like bringing up the example of Lance Armstrong. You know, when he ran the New York City Marathon, I think he finished in like 869th, right? And so, you know, you would think a dude that is at that level, and drugs or not, I don't care, but that level of an endurance athlete would finish a lot better. However, you know, the translation simply doesn't always occur. And so it's like, oh, well, you can go, I'm just going to swim. It's like, no, you definitely still need to run, just to build up, like John was saying, that tissue tolerance and that skill or task specific movement.
For me, like personally, I'm in a sad spot. Everybody feel bad for me, but like, I love running, but just enough injuries here and there.
Right.
So like, I can't do it as consistently, and I'm not good at it anymore, which is the more sad thing. Cause like, you know, in your head when like you were in the best shape of your life. Right. And then you're doing a lift where you're like, man, I always used to be able to easily squat, 405. And now I'm like struggling at 315 or whatever. That's how I am now with running. I'm like, man, I could easily run under 5 minutes at any point. And now I'm like, there's zero chance of that now. Maybe not even for a half mile.
You're like the power hitter. Like, oh man, those balls used to be clearing the wall by 20 feet. Now I'm a singles guy.
Exactly. Talk about leaders and supporting the program and getting it up and running and whatnot. One thing that I wonder about sometimes, right? Like I've seen, on the professional sports, and then I've had, on collegiate side, different leaders or coaches or whatever you want to call it, like different size, I think, leaders and coaches, right? But the push or their not acceptance, either their support for the physical fitness in their own lives, have you seen any difference, or is it pretty similar on military leaders, because I know we have some that are, I'll say it out loud, I won't say names, but some that are super fit and some that are super not. And, just judging from watching, NFL, there's some of their leaders that are pretty fit out there and look like you don't want to, like when they're yelling at you, like you can tell even the big linebackers listening. And then there's others that have a big belly. Mm-hmm. What have you guys seen?
Go ahead.
Well, at least in the strength and conditioning side with strength coaches, when I was going through school, the biggest thing that harped on is like, well, not the biggest thing that harped on, but one thing is like, you need to look the part. Yeah. People are going to listen to you if you look like you know what you're doing. If I go out there and I weigh 400 pounds and I look like I've never ran a day in my life and go tell people how to run, they're not going to listen to me. So you got to, looking the part is important. With some of those coaches in the NFL that like for me, Andy Reid springs to mind. He's not the smallest person, joke is he loves burgers. The thing is he's coaching football. He's not coaching strength and conditioning. So I don't think it matters as much as the chief strength coach or something like that. Same goes for the college side. The coach is more so coaching the sport. They're less worried about the athletic performance side. Granted, they want good athletic performance, but they're not the ones coaching it. So it just depends on what the leader is doing for the team or the group.
Okay.
I think being here, I've seen at least the guys that come over to strike. I don't know everybody in group, but for the guys that come over to strike, from leadership, they've put an emphasis in it, and it's even from change in leadership from Commodore to Commodore. We've seen good collective buy-in from those guys and from a higher level of leadership and utilization with us. Yeah. So, like John was saying, where it's not necessarily on the head coaches to do it, but in this community, obviously, they're going to respond better to guys who have walked a similar path to what you all have done. And so we have seen very good collective buy-in and relationship development with those guys.
Nice. We've also had a lot of them come over and say, man, I wish we had the strike program when we were younger. Yeah. This would have been great to have. I wouldn't have this, that, and the other injury. Mm-hmm. And so I think them saying that shows the younger guys like, oh, this is something that we should utilize because they wish they had it. Yeah. And it shows like they have so many injuries and they can't do certain things. So I don't want to per se be like that, but I'll utilize strike and stay healthy best I can.
Yeah. That's I'm glad you brought that up. Have you seen, so like I've switched just because of injuries, and every time I also know me, like I'm just motivated is the wrong word, because a lot of times I have to really try to get myself to get out the door, right? But competitive. I get too competitive, even with myself. And so when I would start over this last year, and it's actually been right about a year now, I have completely switched the style of working out that I did. And it, with all the injuries and with constantly like tearing muscles, pulling muscles, like seemingly for no reason, I've switched to more of a hypertrophy style where it's like much lighter weights and then higher reps and really like focusing on the stretch and a slower movement too. And you guys are laughing at me now because you're like, I've seen you in the gym and none of that's true, except for the lighter weight part. But have you noticed like older guys with the injuries doing more of that, or still like sticking with like not going one rep max style, but trying to stay heavier weights as much as possible and doing like rep ranges that support that without as much of an injury risk?
I think it's dependent upon their comfort level and what they're familiar with. I think we see even with the older guys, a very diverse programming approach and philosophy, to where some guys, that are older, well into their 40s, and even knocking on 50, that they're still wanting to do high complexity type movements, even if it's not as intense as it once was, but they're still getting after it. And then the other guys who maybe they're in endurance like yourself, like in their prior, days, where the weight room was a little bit unfamiliar territory to them, but now they're seeing the benefit of it to where they would stay a lot more of a lower progression level, with lifts, but it's still new to them. So there's still going to be like a stimulus created for them, but that's not their comfort zone was ever like high complexity training. And so that's going to be completely foreign to them, whether that's them in their 20s or them now currently in 40s.
Gotcha. Yeah. Let's see. Actually, this is a good one. So Strike, it started 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
It started right during COVID. The changes Strike has gone through in just 4 years. Because you've been there basically the entire time, right? If you wouldn't mind, like, kind of talking about where it started and like where it is now, because I don't know how much involvement. I'm assuming you have some involvement in the wearables, that like the push for wearables and tracking, and like I know there's been a lot of improvement in facilities, the equipment, but also in like some of those extra things that are coming in, and how that may or may not play into you guys and your help.
And that's just, the wearables are just another series of our evolution, of Strike. So when I got here, I mean, you saw it with the green turf and and how it was still a good sized facility, but it was met obviously with the guys that we talked about earlier, with a lot of skepticism, a lot of questions, and not a lot of utilization from a rehab standpoint. Yes, but from a strength standpoint, no. But as time evolved, relationships got developed and trust was earned. That grew into us outgrowing that facility. And so to where, it's between 6:30 and 9 in the morning and guys have nowhere to operate. So from a rehab as well as, from a strength standpoint. And so we're able to make an addition every single year that we've been running. So we're able to extend that turf, year 2 going into our year 1. We're able to add 15 yards of usable turf to us, and extra cardio pieces. They were able to add, an entire rehab room, from that first edition. In year 3, we were able to add that outdoor facility, and that's an entire weight room that we were able to add. And again, that's because we outgrew the current facility, and the demand was pushed for more equipment because the utilization was there. And then here in year 4, we just finished the training unit, and where that was more or less hand-me-downs from other units, and kind of a ragtag weight room. Now it's a legit facility, and then to accompany that, we're adding staff. We were able to bring in a phenomenal addition with John, and getting our data analysis there, and being a well-utilized part of the program. And we're continuing to add staff and expanding our staff and expanding where we're going to be located as well. And so the wearables are just another addition that we're able to make in that evolution process, to where we're getting that buy-in, we're getting that utilization. Okay, now that that's there, what's that next step? Where are we going to expand and generate even more utilization, and also generate better results for you guys?
We've also just added a bunch of deployment kit equipment that we're going to be able to send out wherever, and we know exactly what's in there, so we can tailor your program to exactly what you want wherever you are now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know the like with the app, and which is super helpful, like having that app, so that no matter where you are, you can build or adjust a program. But guys would go to a place and figure out what they have, and then send you the list of like, okay, we have dumbbells from like 5 pounds to 35, and then it jumps to 65, or whatever, just like random stuff. And you'd be like, okay, well, let me spend 4 hours and figure out how to put it. But now, having that, like the gyms in a box, basically, like that's awesome. Being able to have that prepped and ready so that when they go out, they open that thing up and actually like start pulling out the stuff and it lines up with everything in the app so that they know and can continue on the program and not get stagnant over deployment, which is awesome. And then, we have the, obviously we're on the East Coast, which is the best on the East Coast, and on the West Coast they have the strike program as well. How does Group 1, Group 2, and the strike program specifically inside that, how do they mesh? Is it pretty seamless? Or
I think in my experience being here about 7 months, it's been pretty seamless. We talk with those guys pretty much every day about
well, for one, trivia. Yeah, Kyle does trivia every day, but
that's awesome.
Just programming, or if a guy comes from the West Coast, we can ask them what they were doing. If we send one of our guys out there, we can tell them what they were doing here. So we have a good relationship with the staff out there, and I think there's a good I can't think of the word, but congruity between the two strike programs there.
And it continues to get better.
Yeah.
And as more and more guys are coming over, we can, even share, like me and John and the strength coach out there. We can continue to share information, and the app makes it so easy and flawless, where it's like, hey, what do you think about, even from an idea standpoint, just getting everybody to kind of express, what they're seeing, or an idea that they have. And that just makes it so we have like a live running document of just, hey, here's one that, guys have been liking and guys brought in here. Here's one that they brought in and we adjusted, or like, hey, he's coming from the East Coast of San Diego. Get ready. But it hasn't been too much of that, but that relationship process is, at least from strength and conditioning and from the athletic training world, over on the West Coast, has been very, very good and very beneficial for us. And I don't know if other organizations have that, to where guys go from coast to coast, and it's a seamless process because that communication and relationship is there.
Nice. One thing I have, because I really don't know anything about the West Coast program, talked about the utilization on the East Coast, like growing over the years and expanding out, with the mobile units not being as close to each other out there. Is the utilization of the facilities at the same level or a similar level to the East Coast?
I think we're definitely spoiled in that we have like 3 mobile units right here. And I know that, gives their particular set of challenges unique to them, but I feel like they've done a phenomenal job, and especially Jack has done such a great job of connecting with those guys with those challenges and going out to the mobile units and being accessible. And I think that is kind of imperative for them, is just to make themselves accessible to where they are. And I know they have, 3 or 4 different facilities and smaller facilities on top of that, to where, strike hasn't necessarily been exposed to the guys out there, or it took a longer time for them. And so that's a luxury that we have that they don't really. But I think they've still done a really good job. Like we run the attendance after every month, and we got to we clean up the data to see our utilization, and there's a lot of Group 1 data that we got to delete to clean up because of ours, or because we got to make room for ours. So we're definitely seeing a lot of utilization from them.
Nice. That's good. Yeah. I wonder about that, 'cause I know for as like motivated and like competitive and everything we're also super freaking lazy. And so like, if it's not, which like you said, their personnel being accessible to, like the West Coast Strike personnel being accessible to the guys at the mobile units, going out and seeing them, man, it's so funny when somebody comes into to the office, not even on strike, but they come into the N7 office and they're like, hey, is this person here? I'm like, no, but they're on email and you can call them. They're just away right now, but you can do that. And they're like, I'll just wait until they get back. You're like, literally, they're sitting waiting for you to do this. They're just not physically in their desk.
Right.
You're like, nah, I'll just wait. We're so lazy sometimes. But I say that to say a couple things. One, it's good to hear that, like, you know, getting out there and seeing face. Because once we're also very relationship based, and like you guys have, you know, stated, and you know, it's pretty obvious. Once we have that relationship with somebody, we're willing to go out of the way to, you know, go and do what we need to, whether it's for a strike program or for something else. But then also, you know, talking about the data and whatnot, and the utilization. Like, I'm just throwing this out there for all of us lazy people who walk through the strike door and don't look at the iPad and click the couple of buttons that we're supposed to click to show that we're utilizing it. Like, this is like the reason why, one of the reasons why it's expanding is because of things like that. Like, actually clicking the button saying, yes, I am here doing a workout. I'm here to see physical therapy or the strength coaches or whatever it is. Right. So, like, this is the plea for the rest of us to, and I'm guilty of it too sometimes. Like, I walk by the door, the thing like buffers too long, and I'm like, I don't got time for this. And then I'm in there for an hour and a half. I'm like, it turns out I had time for that.
Or you text me or John, hey, can you put me in?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, just so you know, I'm fairly certain you can do it on your phone now.
Nice.
So you don't even have to use the iPad.
We've adapted to you guys.
That's so funny.
Yes, please do that. So, because we like our jobs. We like our jobs.
Yeah, right. Let's see. I think we covered pretty much everything that I was thinking about. Do you guys have anything that you want to share, either about strike or you know, talk about somebody that pretends they're in shape and isn't? You know, we can use fake names.
I would just say that this is the most grateful population that I've ever worked with, you know, and so coming to this, I really didn't know what to expect, you know, and I was always, you know, very, very appreciative and supportive. I had, you know, family members, dad, grandfathers, uncles were all in the Navy, and grew up around in this area, and so always had that recognition, that admiration for people, and so when I got this position, was lucky enough to get it. Really still didn't know what to expect. I just knew that, hey, this is going to be my way to, you know, I'm not going to say serve. That's not the right word, but to give back to the military community, and especially the naval community, without serving, and utilizing my skill set, because I can never do what you guys do. And wait, yeah, and but coming here, you know, in entering in this strength world, in this crazy world, you know, 14 years ago. It was always, and I think like any strength coach, you want to work, you know, big boy sports. So, you know, initially I just wanted to work big boy football, and then, you know, saw the reality of that. And I was like, now we're good. Where you see guys, they're moving their families every third year because, you know, this 18 to 22-year-old, you know, this team sucks and everybody gets fired. Yeah. So reality came in, and then same thing in the pro sports world, and seeing that, hey, there's no, you know, life and lifestyle appreciation from you know, what you do in the off season, or appreciation from the players themselves. And so coming here, and it took a while to get that trust from the guys, but this is the most grateful population that I've ever worked with, and it's been such a blessing just to be in accepted into this community, and to be able to work with these guys. So if this makes it on, you know, I hope everybody knows that. And look, at Strike, all we want to do from the strength side is just simply have that conversation, right? We're open ears. It's not like a one way or get out type of philosophy. You know, we want to meet you where you are. We want to have that conversation. At the same time, John and I have to do our jobs, and that job is, you know, creating that operator longevity for you. But at the end of the day, like, just getting back to it, I'm just extremely grateful to be in this position that I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been in this field for 7 months, but it's been it's been a great experience to work with these guys. We're very lucky to work with the community that we do. I've heard some other communities maybe aren't as fun to work with, or the buy-in isn't quite there. So we're very lucky to have be able to work with y'all. And just like Kyle, I wasn't a Navy kid. I was an Army kid. My dad was in the Army for way too long. But I always knew at some point in my strength conditioning career, I wanted to work tactical just so I could give back like he did. And so this opportunity arose earlier than I thought. And I said, I got to take it.
No, I appreciate it. I know, like I said, most of my career, we didn't have any programs. And so it was just like, who's the strongest looking dude? And you talk to him, figure out what his program is. And turns out that's not the best way to go about things.
It's called vitamin T.
Yeah, right. But since when we heard the program was going to start, and like I was pumped about it, right? And then having you guys in there and seeing you every day, and even little things. Like I remember, it was a few months ago, but I was doing, I don't know, good mornings or something, and something bad apparently. Like form wasn't great, right? But like even little things, like I saw you come up and like just waited off to the side until I got done, and then you were like, hey, and like the pointer, right? And there's not like just the way you guys approach everything, right? From giving the like, hey, you could get more advantage if you did it this way, right? Or whatever, or like your form's not quite right. Oh, it was squats. That's what it was. It was squats, and I was like leaning over too far and just looking silly. But like everything from being willing to build a program, even when dudes are getting ready to go out the door, like they don't have a ton of time to sit down and talk about all of their goals and everything, but like the amount of work you guys do, it's very much seen from us. I think especially the older guys, but even the young dudes. Like I talk to a lot of the young dudes, and the benefit that they get, most of them I think understand that having you guys around and the willingness to like support people's goals is awesome. So I appreciate you guys, doing what you do over there, and then coming on and sharing about it. Hopefully we'll get a couple more people in and we can expand even more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Please come talk to us.
Yeah.
I'm not your enemy.
All right. Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share.